Washington, D.C. hosted some of the largest anti-racism protests in the country under the watchful eye of local and federal law enforcement, assisted by National Guard troops brought in to quell violence and unrest.
And what we saw over the past week is really a city out of control. And I'm happy to say that over the last several days, we've seen that violence decrease.
Acting U.S. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf attributes the decrease in violence to the increased security presence on the streets of the nation's capital.
So we'll continue to monitor that, and we'll pull back the number of assets that we have in D.C. As that violence decreases.
On Sunday, President Donald Trump said he ordered National Guard troops in D.C. to withdraw as the violence turned to mostly peaceful protests in recent days. But the role of U.S. troops during unrest has become a hotly debated issue. Retired General and former Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Martin Dempsey, was one of a number of high-profile former military leaders who spoke out against President Trump's desire to increase the presence of U.S. military troops on the streets of American cities.
I thought that given the state of the unrest and the risk that we would put the active duty military in a position where its relationship with the American people would be adversely affected, that I should say something.
Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser sent a letter to President Trump requesting the removal of additional law enforcement and National Guard troops not from Washington, D.C. She believes tactics used by security forces against protesters near the White House before President Trump visited a nearby church last week has contributed to the larger protest gatherings.
What Americans saw was federal police forces tear gassing peaceful Americans, and how they responded made clear to the president that Americans would exercise their First Amendment rights and they would do it peacefully. And what he actually did, as you saw for the remaining days, was turn out more people and more people who were there for peaceful protest.
As large crowds gathered for protests throughout many American cities, mourners from across the country filtered into George Floyd's home state of North Carolina to attend memorial services near the town where he was born.
I felt the wave of emotions, feeling overwhelmed, this sense of grief and wanting to cry. And then upon walking through and seeing him lying there, first of all, I was just praying that God would bless his soul to be at peace, because he didn't have peace in his final moments here on earth.
Floyd's family and friends now prepare to say their final goodbyes during funeral services planned later this week in Houston, Texas. Kane, Farabaugh, VOA News.